Hello and welcome to Beyond Boundaries, a talk show that brings you the insightful and inspiring journey of leaders who are changing the landscape of education in India. I'm your host, Abhishek Bhardwaj, and this show is brought to you by Silverzone Foundation. Today, I have a very special guest with me. She is the principal of Delhi Heritage School. With an incredible experience of over 28 years in education, she has been the guiding light for countless students, helping shape young minds into confident, future-ready learners. She is a true visionary leader, deeply respected for her strong commitment to academic excellence, holistic development, and emotional well-being of students. Her outstanding work has earned her several prestigious awards, including Best Principal Award, Global Principal Award, Savitribai Phule Award. But beyond all, what truly defines her passion is for inclusivity, empathy, and global learning. It's our absolute privilege to welcome Ms. Vibha Gupta, Principal, Delhi Heritage School. Very welcome, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Abhishek. And thank you for such a long introduction also.
It's always a pleasure to bring out and meet principals who have been a beacon of inspiration to everyone.
Pleasure talking to you.
So, ma'am, let's begin where the story starts, the good old days, right? What inspired you to choose education and how it became a career trajectory for you?
You would be surprised to know I never chose this career voluntarily. My education from Delhi University, I did English honors from Ramjas College. Thereafter, I went for a diploma in business management as I belong to a family of chartered accountants and there is no teacher in the whole family, the entire extended family also. But as it is said, man proposes and God disposes. So I just applied. I was in Bhopal and nothing to do. So I applied to a school, Carmel Convent, one of the very best schools there. And I got accepted for the teacher of class 1. And that classroom experience was so enriching. It was so enjoyable, I would say. That time I wouldn't even know. I was so young. I wouldn't even know enriching. But it was enjoyable. I really enjoyed my stint teaching those little girls of class 1. It was an all-girls school. So I think that's how it started. And then I seriously started thinking about pursuing it further and education followed, training followed. I was an untrained teacher at that time, but very fortunate to have mentors who really helped guide me. And then the journey began. That's the first step.
Okay. So you were kind of going with the flow, just enjoying the moment.
Correct. I was going with the flow and I also got a lot of opportunities right from the beginning of my career. Small things like getting to judge an inter-house competition. It would elate me, and I was so excited that, I've given something worthwhile to do. And eventually an inter-school competition. And those were small rewards actually that egged me on, to pursue this career. But I'm glad I did that. Here I am, and I'm very glad that I took that first step and maybe that was the calling.
Oh yeah, I could see that spark from your eyes right now when you go back. You're talking so passionately about those days.
And I still remember those days, but there were such happy days and each day was a learning. Each day was a new day. Just to tell you one episode when I started teaching those class 1 children, they also, in their kindergarten, their school timing was till 1 p.m. and when they come to class 1, it was till 2:15. So what happened my first day at school, I had no clue how to handle them at all. And at 1, the bell rang and the girls, all girls school, they would hang their bags and they started rushing out of the class. And I had to really stop them at those times, So those small things, when I see my teachers these days, when they are freshers, I remember my days and I say, it's all right, they will go far.
So, what would be the most defining moment that you still carry with you?
Lots of places, lots of, I would say, opportunities that came my way. This journey has been really long, like you mentioned, more than 28 years now. And 3 places I've taught. The Carmel Convent was a very enriching experience. Then I shifted to Delhi and very first interview I gave and I got accepted at Sachdeva Public School, Pitampura. That was like my exposure to a co-educational school, teaching a little senior classes, I would say class 7, 8. And there I really grew as a teacher, as a person, because then eventually I got to be the coordinator, then I got to be teaching class 12, and then the examinations in charge, eventually HOD English.
Okay.
So things kept coming my way. I don't know why, what happened, and how that is a mystery still for me to date. But whatever came my way, the only thing that put me to task was, let me do it. Whatever came, though I was maybe many things came for the first time, but this opportunity to come to this school as head of school, as founder principal, as the first admission through my hand, the first appointment of teachers, it was a defining moment because it was too new for me. Though I had been examinations in charge, HOD English, but I had no administrative experience. School is not just academics.
That's very.
It is a lot of admin work as well, which I had no exposure to. So eventually I got to understand that I have to look after a Mali as well, and I have to look after an accounts department as well. It is not just classroom. So that was a defining moment, and I think I am very, very glad, and my gratitude to God for this opportunity that I got. As a person, I grew.
So, I mean, I think that is how one's journey should be. Whatever is coming your way. It's a very good mantra that I abide by. If you say you can't, you're right. If you say you can, you might. So you never know what opportunity or what next door might open from that particular opportunity.
Correct. And once you say you can, I think you should get that support from your environment as well, like your seniors. That matters the most. Their trust on you, and that is very important, and which I have been very fortunate I've got. Then your support from the faculty, from the students, parents. So all those things also matter. It is a collective effort. I wouldn't say the success is only one person, one man show.
So, ma'am, you started your journey as a classroom teacher. How has that experience influenced the way you lead a school today?
I would say that is the main thing. The classroom teacher taught me so many things. Just to give you an example, we would know how to deal with various students, then deal with parents, their expectations from the school, from the teacher. All that came through the classroom. We would know to deal with various kind of children, their problems, not just cognitive or intellect, but also emotional, physical. So I think that exposure is what makes me what I am today. I use that experience even today when I deal as a principal with the children. I'm the teacher first and principal later. You are a teacher, you would think like a teacher at that time. And sometimes, also because I've spent my life in staff rooms. So I've gone through the staff room politics, the staff room culture as well. So that exposure equips me with that, insight on the people skill, I can say. That got developed, through classrooms.
Okay. So, ma'am, you have such a long journey. And speaking about the environment and supportiveness from everyone, have you seen this culture in terms of staff room environment change from the time you started? And now, when you are in a leading position, do you still see there are certain changes, or do you still feel that humans are the same?
You're right, humans are the same, but environment changes, times change, lots of technology has gotten now. Those were the days we used to make question papers by hand, and the result sheets used to be those big result sheets, and we used to calculate 10%, 20%. Those results were made and by report cards by hand, no chance for an error. These are the days of apps and typing and the service providers and ERP.
And now with AI booming, you just have to write in a prompt and everything is done for you.
Correct, and it's not even typing on the phone, or now it is just holding it the other voice. So lots have changed, correct, and the challenges change accordingly. Those were the times we used to write ourselves. Now I ask a teacher to frame a circular, she will come back in 5 minutes because ChatGPT does that for her. So how to put in that human element, our specific element. So now the handling is different. We need to now read it, change it according to our needs, and the emotional connect has to be put in now consciously. which used to be done earlier ourselves, and now it's machine writing things for us. So yes, staff from culture also has come a long way. So have the students, so have the parents. So everything has changed over years, and handling changes. One has to adapt to times.
That's true.
There's
One
no
has to
other way.
adapt. In order to stay relevant, you have to adapt. True. So let's talk about the school vision now. Right. So when you say holistic development, what does that truly mean to you? And in today's education ecosystem and environment?
Very important term, and part of our vision at Delhi Heritage School. This is our core values. It is inherent in our core values. When I say holistic, see, if I look back to my childhood days, marks were very important. The parents used to find, okay, you got 72%, fine. The other child has got 82, the neighborhood child or somebody. But these days, the parents' expectations also have changed. The schools also have changed. Marks are important, but so are other skills. These days, earlier, the professions were just engineering or a medical profession or a profession as a chartered accountant or something. But now, children are allowed to be singers, players, sportsmen. They're allowed to pursue
And they're also
their-
getting that kind of support as well.
from parents as well. Even the parents know. I have a student in my school, he's passed out and he's a very promising cricketer. One day I hope to see him in the IPL or someplace. The father would come to me right from his childhood, like class 5, 6, and he would say, "Ma'am, pass हो जाएगा English और maths में, उतना करवा दीजिए, बाकी मैं cricket में निकालना है इसको." So now the parents' expectations also have changed. So accordingly, holistic development, coming back to your question, is in every aspect. Intellectually strong, all right, but emotionally also strong to deal with failures. Failures should be normalized, or I would say mistakes should be normalized in this school. All right, if the work is not done or not up to the mark, but the child is going for, say, debates very nicely, is a good orator, so that is also success.
That's
That
true.
is
That's
also,
true.
so these
Such
days.
is not just you're getting marks or
Marks,
becoming an
correct.
engineer. There are a lot of professions now.
Yes.
Right.
And in the national education policy that has come, more stress is on the experiential learning. So it is not just exam oriented, which is very positive development for education system. So in my school, I want to see individuals who are confident, who walk out of the school, who are not emotionally unstable or would say weak. So I want to build that strength with them. So we give opportunities to them to speak a thought at the school assembly. Maybe they would be participating in a play in the school. And see, I used to hear one line from one of my mentors earlier. She used to say, "सब कोयल नहीं होते हैं, और जंगल में सिर्फ कोयल ही गाएगा तो जंगल बहुत शांत हो जाएगा. Let the crows also sing." So we ensure children get opportunity. What they pursue later, it's all right. So by holistic, I mean everybody gets to do almost everything while they're in school.
So for this are there any certain kind of clubs that you have introduced, or is it in the developmental stages at the moment?
Yes, we have lots of clubs. We have an eco club, we have the English literary club, we would have a maths club, we would have a sculpture club, and also connoisseurs. They would do candle making, they would do, painting, or maybe cooking, a little bit of cooking without fire or with fire also. So let them try their hand, and you will be surprised to know lots of boys opt for connoisseurs.
Yeah.
Lots of boys.
I'm one of them.
Because they love doing it. They will come to me with a tray set with a glass of a drink and a bhel puri or something, to show the decorations over it and the garnishing. So I feel very happy to see. Let them take their calling.
That just reminded me of my time when I was in home sciences class.
Yes, and I really love to see those children there. Sports is all right. Music, many children go, but let them go to a actors club or something. So that is one opportunity. They may change their club also. That also we allow.
Yeah. Okay. Any new introductions into robotics or AI, since this is on a boom and now the world is shifting,
That's a very in thing. We have to give exposure to our children to all this new technology. The digital world is here, and it is truly here. One has to adapt to it and adopt it also. So yes, the robotics is a part of the curriculum. Like we have yoga or aerobics, similarly robotics, skills are a part of curriculum. So what we are planning this year, because skill education started this year in a big way. So first of all, we have been doing renovating a skills lab for our children, and two of the classes are planning a rooftop garden. So that's the space I'll be giving them, and they'll plan a layout, plan the kind of plants, a kitchen garden at the rooftop. So skill we are giving them exposure to. Robotics is yes a part of the curriculum. ICT has always been a part of the curriculum. So exposure to everything is given in the school. That is mandatory, and then they take their call. And some children pursue something further, and some want to do academics. All are all right with us.
So at Delhi Heritage School, it's not just about the marks or about, getting into a profession as an engineer or a doctor or an entrepreneur. It's about, getting that particular safe zone for students to explore what they want to do, be it singing, art, dance, cooking.
Correct.
So, ma'am, as we were talking about technology, let's pick that topic out of the basket, right? So, technology is changing education rapidly. So, how has Delhi Heritage School adapted to this change? And you mentioned your core values. So, are you you mentioned adapting and adopting. So, are these going to change the core values, or you going to integrate or find a middle ground for that?
No, it won't change our core values. They remain same. And the core values are very simple, holistic development, global citizens of the world, grooming children into globalization. So technology is a part of it. It is also a tool for it. Technology may complement education. It would enhance education, but it will not replace education. It won't. So technology like smart classes, each and every classroom at our school is a smart classroom. So earlier we used to have those projectors and pull down screens, and lately for the last 2 years we have interactive smart boards in some of the classes. So teachers are using technology to complement. Suppose if taken up a topic, say angles. So a 3D, portrayal of angles would be a better way of understanding a particular topic, but it cannot replace a teacher or a chalkboard in any way. That is an integral part. The human connect cannot go. Because communication skills technology, sometimes I feel I may be wrong, but it hampers the human connect, the communication skills, because things are done automatically. AI and all. But that human connect for students is a must. They have to go out into the world. They have to appear for interviews. They have to work with their businesses, their startups. They have to sell. So for that, we have to groom them with those skills. So we have a very good balance of technology along with the traditional way of teaching as well.
True. Okay. So we were talking about the humane side of a school's working and administration. So student mental health is such an important topic today. What steps does your school take to support students emotionally and they feel safe in order to express themselves or any kind of challenge that they are facing?
If I talk about logistics, yes, we have a school counselor, we have special educators in place. The teachers, the coordinators, everybody's trained in empathy. Regular teacher workshops are there. That's a logistic, I think, that we are doing. But having said that, that personal touch, like I would know, I can very confidently tell you, I would know each and every student of my school personally also. So I feel that yes, teachers are doing their needful, but that everybody together have to identify if there is a problem. For that, we should have a vision, an eye to judge and see, and then deal with each child as individual. It cannot be a counseling session we have done or a workshop we have done. Our entire class is sitting and somebody comes and tells them how to behave and goes. That is a very impersonal way of taking it up. So the personal way is that we handle with children. I would like, if you have time, there would be students who sometimes, one of the student I can say was very willful. Every time he did something mischievous, the teacher would take it up and he would say, now you see a changed person from now on. I wouldn't take the name. He would take his name and he would say, you will see a new person. But the change never was seen. So we try to handle that separately. We have to see to it, what is the environment at home? What is the problem? Is he having some kind of an inferiority or some complex? Is the child attention seeker? So for the mental health and emotional well-being, one-on-one connect along with, yes, regular workshops, school counselors, everything is there. But still I feel one-on-one connect is important. At Delhi Heritage School, we do try to handle people, handle children with care, I would say. They should need, sometimes attention seekers are there, but they should be able to voice themselves. That opportunity we give in the classroom as well as outside the classroom.
All right. Okay. That's really awesome to hear that there are such initiatives now in place inside the school ecosystem where, teachers have identified these are the problems and they are taking necessary steps in order to guide that particular student. And I love the fact that you are going to the root cause of the problem, not just solving the problem.
If I'm able to change even one child in a year, bring about a change in one child, I think that's what is my award and reward. Not these.
Yeah. I'm sure these
That's
are
the
also
reward.
very, but then that gives you that purpose,
Yes, that
the driving
happiness,
force.
and the children do come back. After they pass out, they would come back. And even some of the students of my old school, their kids are studying with me here. And they would come back and tell me कि आपने तब एक बार डांटा था. I said, okay. So they remember you all your life just because of that one, gesture you have shown to them. That's important.
So ma'am, in this next segment, we'll talk about the global exposure and collaborations that you have done. So you have worked on international collaborations. How do global partnerships enhance a student's learning experience?
See, globalization is here and it is very real, and children have to be trained to understand diverse cultures. If I would just get back to in our country, children have very less exposure in their home front to diverse cultures. As Indians, we rejoice and we take pride so much in our own culture, our festivals. So at home, usually that acceptability of other cultures is very less, the exposure. We started this program about 6 years ago when we enrolled for the British Council International School Program. So they used to, now that program is stopped, but they used to have this kind of a program. Schools would enroll, and for 3 years we had to do international work to be a part of that program. So it started from there when we had a partnership with the school in Morocco and we did an exhibition. We had an exhibition of our culture here and they had of their culture, and then we had a Skype session and shared photographs and videos. That was a small way of doing it. But now for the last 3 years, we have been really associated in a big way with about 5 schools or 6 schools for now in Taiwan. And we picked that project up as an ongoing project. Various grades and the elementary school also would connect with their elementary school. We would have a session, say, on festivals of India. So once it so happened, we showed them about Holi and the colors and Pichkari and Gunjiyas. Even, children would dress up in white and come, and they also showed us their dragon race and, So the best part was all of them wishing us with a namaste. And, my children equally loud, they were ni hao. So, we taught them a few words. So that was really very enriching an experience, and children go home really excited and looking for more. So we have been doing it, and then we send them a parcel with all those gulal colors. It was difficult to send that parcel. Pichkaris were allowed, and children made some bonfire with ice cream sticks, and we sent those things for them. But colors were not allowed. But then I told the person, the transporter, that we have to ferry it. It reached there. Their unboxing video, it is on our school website also, the page also. it was a pleasure to see them unbox and then, put colors to each other, playing with pitchkaris. It was like Holi in Taiwan. So our children also, and I think such programs really enrich them. They begin to respect other distinct cultures and they respect their own culture more. Like my children would say, ki, ma'am, they're also playing Holi. So that is a big thing. So that brings a respect for their own culture as well, along with appreciating others. We had once exchanged some letters with them in person, in kind, not just digitally.
Okay. Kind of pen pal.
Pen pal kind of a thing. So not just letters, there were some columns in that because those people don't know much of English. Most of it is Mandarin but international schools do speak. So there were some questions on it, like your favorite place in Taipei, and ours was favorite place in Delhi, favorite food, and what do you want to be in future? So our children, mostly engineer, doctor, pilot, nurse, teacher, and their children, it was like plumber, a rapper, or a guitarist also. So, it was very good to see and read those letters in a group discussion here, and they read ours. So we understand that the dignity of labor, in our country, we have certain white collar, blue collar. Many countries don't have that. So that was a chance for us to tell our children. You see, everybody has a thought process. A country's culture is there. So our children learned a lot from these programs and we want to extend it to other countries as well. We will do that in future.
I mean, that's so true. A country needs an engineer, but they also need a plumber.
Correct.
They also need a gardener. That's not something that cannot be obsolete.
We can't do without them.
Yeah.
So such things, I think these programs inculcate a lot of change of mindset in the students. If we do that from this early age, 6, 7, 8 years of age, I think this will grow.
It will eventually, yes, ma'am. I think it will grow now. Since now digitization is like, almost happening every minute of our lives, Skype calls, WhatsApp, there's so much. Even when we are in person, there are certain ways that we are connected digitally as well, right? So to my next question, in your opinion, how important is cultural exchange in preparing students for a global connected world?
Very important. I would say very important. We do not know our children where they are going out in the world, which part of the world they'll be living in. It is very important for them to know as much as possible about various cultures, not about the world, only about India also. We are living in this, northern part of India or Delhi. Our children may not know much about South India or East India. So when they travel, globalization as well as within India also, they need to understand it is not that what mindset or lifestyle we are set in is not the only one. There are many more in the world. Just going back to Taiwan also, our grade 9 last year had a project where we cooked, So they sent us 3-4 recipes of their dishes and we had to choose one according to the ingredients available here. We sent ours. So they had to cook Indian food and we had to cook Taiwanese food and children had to do that. So we selected one and then boba tea and they selected a kheer and a paneer, shahi paneer. So we guided them. You go to an Indian store and you will get flatbreads there. My children went to a department store here with the teacher to buy ingredients first. They didn't know what is bok chow. They wouldn't know, so we searched and we called them up. We knew it's available on Blinkit also, but children wouldn't know. So gradually they get to understand there are other things and other ways of cooking. They cooked a meal. Then we had a Skype session. They did a prayer before their meal and we said a prayer and then we ate together, It was really good and very challenging for us because they serve midday meal in their schools. But our public schools and my school, we don't have a system of that. So we didn't have those trolleys, we didn't have those big utensils. So children organized things, and served. So it was a learning. I think it is very important to train children consciously into various cultures and systems.
True. So now in this segment, let's talk about reflection and leadership and awards. I'm sure there are a lot of them, but let's take one story at a time. You have received like several prestigious awards. What keeps you motivated to continue striving for excellence?
I wouldn't say these awards don't motivate. Yes, they do motivate. One, everybody looks for motivation. When I say we provide motivation to children or teachers, then I also need that, all right. But the biggest motivation, like I just told you, is my children. When these awards come, okay, fine. But when I see my children do well, in life, in school, in academics, in other parts, other things, other streams, that is the biggest motivation. Awards are, yes, on the side. I think they follow.
And how do you encourage your teachers to strive for excellence?
That is very important. Teachers have to be motivated and kept motivated. And for that, yes, regular workshops are there, training programs are there. Then the CBSE also conducts so many capacity building programs. The subject training has to be there. But more importantly, training in developing children in other ways, not just academics. It is mostly teachers need to be trained emotionally as well. They need to be kept on a high, for anything, because for teachers also it's race against time these days. We say digitalization has come, technology has come, but the workload hasn't reduced. The workload is still there. In fact, it's even more because more subjects seeping in and more expectations from the parents as well, expectations from the management as well. So teachers need to be motivated. We train each other in one way. That is one system I have devised in my school. We have lots of demo classes. Like in the vacation this last week, teachers are reporting to school. So we learn from each other's best practices as well. Otherwise, what reference do they have? There may be a workshop like we are associated with Isha Foundation of Sadhguru. They would come for a Miracle of Mind workshop or a yoga workshop, or we are associated with the Brahma Kumaris. So Didis would come for a meditation. That is all right. That's good, and that is a part of the school curriculum. Apart from that, a teacher may take a demo class in English and others are listening to her. So we learn from her best practices, the voice modulation, a little bit of enactment in the class while teaching. So teacher training is an integral part. We take it up very regularly in our school in any which way.
Okay. And in terms of, we're talking about motivating and encouraging teachers, do you believe academics is one side? What about co-curricular activities like Olympiads? Like, do you believe they help, or is it just kind of one more add-on for a student in order to, justify if they are doing well in academics?
It definitely helps. Actually, it prepares them for more examinations and tests and competitions for future. Taking Olympiads and maybe some other exams, there are many more, not just Olympiads. There would be a Hindi, or like we are associated with Bharat Vikas Parishad. They have a Bharat Ko Jano quiz every year. My children participate, they hold it in my school, and then it is at the district, state level, etc. So such things, prepares them for life, prepares them for more competitive exams in future. Like they have to get into an engineering as well sometimes. So they have to appear for JEE, they have to go for a NEET, they have to. So these things actually prepares them for varied questions, because internal home exams, teachers are teaching, the same teachers are setting a question paper, the children are appearing for that paper. So where is the exposure of the outside world? So such tests and exams, yes, definitely they are an integral part of our school. We encourage children to participate. Not just this, many inter-school competitions. We organize inter-school competitions. We want children to come to our school and our children to be as an audience. Even if we have an inter-school skating competition, I send my classes to sit at that stadium and our playground and cheer for the teams, and because that also teaches. As kid, I used to go. My school was good at basketball. I was from Rosary School, and we used to go to Montfort and used to go as a cheering lead team there. So we learn a lot, to cheer. It creates a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
Belonging for
And
the
teaches
school.
teamwork as well, or how to, even if you're losing, how to accept it gracefully.
Gracefully
that's what
after
gives
that,
you.
Yes, there will be a moment of disheartenment, but then it's all right. The very next moment they come back to the class and they are normal. So they learn to get defeat also. Yes, so everything is important for the children. All this is learning. Learning is not just textbooks.
So do these Olympiads give you the proper assessments that you're looking for, or is it just an exam that now this is the pattern that how you will see after a grade 12 exam? do you get those insights from them, or is it something that is just, we'll see later on?
There are all kinds, but Silver Zone, I would compliment you for that because we get a very comprehensive report student-wise, where they stand school-wise and where the children stand state-wise. So that is very important for the children. It really helps the children as well as the parents. Sometimes, parents have some unrealistic expectations from the children. It's both ways.
Yeah.
High achievers are there, but there are some students who are really forced to appear also by parents thinking that, okay, they can do very well. But when they get an assessment which tells us where a child stands at various levels, it's an eye-opener for the parents as well. A child may do very good in English Olympiad, but has not scored in maths. So they would take an informed choice when the child comes to class 11. They would know the right choices of subjects. So these things are stepping stones, I would say, to future choices also. So some Olympiads like Silver Zone is very comprehensive, and some of there we just get the list of winners and certificates, but even that is all right because that is a motivation for the children to get those certificates and those medals. We always put it that way. It also depends on the school how we portray it. Like if I would announce awards in the assembly, then I would say that each one of you from my side is a winner and each one of you is eligible and you deserve this, work hard for that. So that gives a impetus to the work.
And thank you, ma'am, because that compliment coming from you, I have that feeling of proudness inside me because I have been one of the members who have been working very closely for the assessments. How can we improve? How can we give those targeted insights to school management and for students as well? So this year we have introduced Real Matrix assessment system. So now a school will get 2 reports. One is for the student and one is for the school management, so that they get a clear roadmap of how the school in terms of academics and in terms of the questions that we have been introduced in this. But this year it's more on competency based and not just
Correct.
rote learning. Right.
That's
So
very important.
let's hope how this year brings
I'm sure it will be
insight for
better.
us.
I'm sure because you are bringing those positive changes. But student assessment that you sent last year was really comprehensive, really good, appreciated by parents as well.
Thank you so much. I feel very motivated now. I'm gonna do much better next year.
That's my point actually, to motivate you to betterment.
So, if you could bring one reform in education, what could that be?
Reforms are underway these days. So many reforms have come up this year, But I'm glad the reforms that have come up are in the right direction. The NEP and then the NCF-SC, the National Curricular Framework, are a reform in right direction. We see a definite shift from textbooks to learning, a definite shift from from teacher to the learner. I think it is now learner-centric, and also a lot of global activities, the changes that the skill education being introduced, the computational thinking. I think all that will show the results in some time now that are being introduced. Mine would be, we have to be, and it is underway, so it's nothing new that I'm telling you, but we have to be child-centric. What we are doing in India right now, what I feel, we have been doing all these years, and specifically when I look back to my career, we were more into the students were forced to adapt to the education system, the school or the CBSE or the curriculum or whatever. I would like to see a stage when the education system adapt to a child's need. In India, it is difficult because of the sheer numbers in the classroom, but it is doable now, I think.
It will come eventually. It will come
The
eventually.
changes that I see, I think it's doable. We will be able to do that so that we are able to mold ourselves according to why should we ask a little child to mold himself? So that would be, I would like to see that. Maybe utopian, maybe doable, let's see. But that's my personal.
So, ma'am, as a part of the school leadership, how do you, or as a collective management decision, how do you decide this academic year or for the next 3 years, this is the publisher that we are going? What are those factors or variables that you have in place, and some things that come up with time? So how, or what are the factors, if you can share with us?
Book list deciding is a major activity. And in my school, it is a very inclusive activity. At Delhi Heritage School, lots of publishers send their samples every year. We get many books, and all of them are always good. Everybody writes a book or decides or curates a book. Obviously, it is for the positivity. What we have been doing for years now is like the English department would get the English books of all the publishers that we receive, and the Hindi department theirs. And now, though it's NCRT 6th onwards, it is only up to primary. And primary also, we have adopted NCRT in a big way. Earlier, NCRT did not publish. But for publishers also, the teachers read almost all the books. They go through them and all. Then will we have a meeting, subject-wise here with me, teachers sitting with those books, and then they can, we are guided by the teacher's opinion as well. So they would say a comprehensive exercise work is there, or maybe good illustrations are there. The stories are new. Sometimes stories are very repetitive. What a child has studied in a textbook in class 8 may be repeated in class 6 sometime. Sometimes it happens. So there are many things, whether the to-do activities are there, whether a good group discussion is added, lots of things are there. So a very practical, inclusive decision-making process goes for books up to now. Let's see what happens in future.
Well, I hope you will get some good insights from Ingenious Press this year, because we've been working on the kind of pointers that you have mentioned, how to understand the child psychology, and then adding on to not just making them learn things, but making them walk through that particular experience.
To do exercises should be there.
Through activities, right? So, ma'am, as we move towards the last segment of our podcast, right, this is a rapid fire. I'll give you one word and you'll answer in one word. There's no time to think. Very blunt, and whatever comes to your mind.
Okay. I'll try.
Don't be politically correct.
I'll try again.
Okay. So, ambition.
Necessary.
Confidence.
Again necessary, but build.
Delhi Heritage School.
Excellence.
Moral values.
Very important.
Ethics.
Inculcate.
Students.
Dear ones.
Okay. Olympiads.
Difficult.
Okay. Abhishek Bhardwaj.
Very cordial. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So, thank you, ma'am, for sharing your valuable insights with us today. It was a very enriching experience for us and for our viewers as well, I'm sure. Your unwavering dedication to education, holistic student development, teacher encouragement has continued to serve as a powerful beacon of light in education in India. We would like to thank you, your staff, to make this discussion possible with us today. And we wish you a continued success in years to come in shaping the leaders of tomorrow. Thank you once again, ma'am, for being with us at Beyond Boundaries. Until next time.
Thank you so much, Abhishek, for taking out time for this chat with you. And I feel enriched today. I've also learned a lot from you. Thank you so much. And you're a very good, I would say, quiz master.
Pleasure is all mine. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.